Hello everyone, Bardic Nerd here, coming to you with a new guide for Millennia. This one focused on the governments for Millennia. This guide is going to look at the two starting possible governments for Millennia, the Age 1 governments. That so normally, I should preface this with normally you do not get a choice of what government to enter into at the start of the game, um, unless you choose the Nomad start that is available with the most recent expansion. Having the Nomad start is available with just the update and not with owning the expansion, but being able to choose the new government does require having the expansion. So you can do the Nomad start without the expansion as of update 5, but you will need the expansion to actually be able to select the new government. So when you do a Nomad start, when you settle your first city, you get to choose what government you go into for Age 1. So there are two choices, as you can see here. There is Band Society, which is the new one that requires the expansion, and there's Tribal Society, which is the old default one. So let's look at the two. So, Band Society, again, this requires the Ancient Worlds expansion pack, and is only available if you are doing a Nomad start. So we have Band Together here, which reveals, I believe, up to two, anyways, nearby tribal camps. Those are the goody huts, and spawns a scout at your homeland. That's really useful. So it shows you where to get the goody huts faster. That's a nice thing. It allows you to beeline to them rather than searching randomly for them, and getting the rewards from them is pretty useful for creating your snowball early on. And it gives you a free scout, which is just very good at this stage of the game. It's extremely useful. Maybe not as good as oral history in the tribal tree that gives you +1 research, increasing research by 50% at this stage of the game, but it's still actually amazing, and it's really quick to get, so you will get this very quickly, unlike oral history, which takes you a bit of time to get. So down here we have Vigilance, gives you a free archer, and gives you 50% more defense to your pre-gunpowder units. So all the units you're going to have while you still have Band Society um, active, it's going to give you 50% more defense on all your units versus barbarians, and also megafauna, which is effectively a type of barbarian that you can optionally include, um, to replace some of the regular barbarians uh, with the Ancient Worlds expansion. Um, it's not a bad ability. It's certainly a good one, actually. Getting a free archer and increasing your defense against barbarians. That's good. Um, but it's probably actually going to be the last ability in this government that you take, simply because the other abilities are even more good. The abilities in Band Society are actually really good and really useful. And this one is good. It's just not as good as the others. Um, so that says something about Band Society, really. It's like one of the nice but not game-changing ones. A bit like the community projects ability in the tribal tree, I would say. Um, then we have Aggregate Mythology, which is +10 knowledge instantly. That's enough knowledge to instantly discover one of the Stone Age texts. That's good. That's definitely really good. getting lump sum knowledge is obviously a good thing because you want to, if you get stuff all at once instead of over time, then you can capitalize on it sooner. That said, um, doing the calculations, the total amount of knowledge that you gain from this is probably about between a half or a third of the knowledge that you would be getting from oral history in the tribal tree. Actually, maybe even less than, maybe even as little as a quarter, depending upon how things go for you. Um, and oral history comes at the same position in the tree and costs the same amount of government XP. Um, that said, oral history, of course, gives you it gradually. Um, so you're getting one per turn from oral history, or 1.25 if you have local reforms up. So if you, and this, the knowledge that you get from this won't increase due to local reforms because it's just an instant lump sum, not a amount that is being produced by your homeland that would be affected then by local reforms. Um, but it's still a really nice thing. It's still a really nice thing. Um, and then there's egalitarian society, which increases the culture that your homeland generates by +1, and also all your cities, all your capitals, um, get 6 unrest suppression. Um, that's definitely a useful thing. It's useful. It's just not amazing. Again, it's like um the community projects and the tribal tree, which is +1 um, improvement points at your homeland. Although I'd say this is probably better than that because culture is extremely important. Although improvement points at that stage of the game are also very important, and that's a community projects is a relatively greater improvement to your improvement points, as that will double your improvement points rather than increasing it by 50%. Um, but this also gives you unrest suppression, which you aren't likely to really need at this stage in the game. Uh, but it is still good to have. Um, the uh, the culture, of course, is definitely really good. Um, because getting the culture will do a lot of stuff for you. Uh, but of course, it's not going to be as good as Cradle of Civilization. And then once you get Cradle of Civilization, then you can go Reformed, which gives you +2 culture for your homeland. So really, you'll be getting this next to last in this tree, and it'll be helpful, just not, amazing by that time. Um, so then we have Cradle of Civilization. Oh boy, Cradle of Civilization. Uh, it gives you a nomad band. Uh, and this is good, people. This is good. This is just good. Um, so this is the same cost that you would pay to create a settler. It's the same cost that you would pay to create a settler. So it's basically as if you are creating a settler that is better than the normal settler, um, and doing so uh, before you take reformed. Um, so this does delay your taking reformed uh, somewhat, which is the slight con. It's the slight downside to this, but there is just so much upside to this that it's totally amazingly worth it. Um, so it will delay you getting to reformed, um, but it'll give you a nomad band, which a nomad band can you realistically be able to scavenge a forest. At this stage in the game, there won't really be any frozen tiles left, so you'll realistically be able to scavenge a forest and probably a hill, assuming you have hills in anywhere near you. Um, which you might not. If you don't have forests near you, you should probably restart the game. Um, but so scavenging a tile is not quite the same result as it is to go into a one of the tribal camps and get the goody hut results. But it's roughly similar to that. It's roughly similar to the stuff that you can get from that, and you do get a choice of two options, um, the same as you do with the tribal camps. So you get some like it's basically getting two tribal camps for free that you can get reasonably quickly. Um, and then being able to build a new city. Um, and because when a nomad band settles a place, they get the option of one of three rewards based on the amount of XP they have. They could get some knowledge, they could get some culture, or they could get production at their initial capital, all of which are really nice things at this stage in the game. Um, it's likely to be about 5-ish, um, a little bit less or a little bit more, but about 5 culture or 5 knowledge or around 12 production or so, um, all of which are very good options at this stage in the game. Just very good at this stage in the game. Um, and then when you settle that place, unlike when you settle a place with a settler, it instantly becomes a functional integrated city. Instantly becomes an integrated region. There is no waiting like 20 turns until you can integrate it and then spending additional government XP to integrate it. There's none of that. There is just the initial outlay of 30 government XP, same that you would spend to get a settler, and then when you settle the place, you get it instantly for no additional government XP. So this is amazingly, amazingly huge. And it means you'll get a second city online way before you do if you had chosen tribal. And then of course there's the reformed, which is the same as all reforms +2 culture in your homeland and gives you 10 innovation um, instantly to your innovation, uh, which you will then be accumulating that amount of innovation every turn until you get an innovation, um, and then it'll act as normal innovation and reduce. Um, and that's of course, a good thing that you want to get. It'll be definitely nice. It'll be very useful, especially at this stage in the game. Getting the extra 2 culture in your homeland is really, really huge. The getting reformed in the later governments is not as big because it just doesn't affect as much, although the innovation, of course, will be still be the same amount because that doesn't change in any way. But you'll have other ways to get innovation at a later game, generally speaking. So, overall, I would say so. This is, of course, only a choice when you're doing the Nomad start. Um, but it is probably the best choice. Not always the best choice. If you don't have a good location near you to settle this nomad band, it is not as good. Um, it's less reliable. It's less reliable in some ways uh than the tribal government. I should stress that it is less reliably good. Um, you get instant bonuses to stuff instead of gradual bonuses. Um, and the total amount that you are getting from those bonuses is smaller. It's smaller than the total amount that you would get from the gradual bonuses in the tribal tree. So the tribal tree is more predictable and consistent, which is a benefit of itself. Um, but getting the early benefits and getting the extra scout to find more tribal camps, uh, getting the um, increased defense against barbarians and extra archers so you can take down barbarians early on to get the rewards from taking them down much more easily than you would otherwise. Um, and of course, getting that city online earlier for less cost is huge, absolutely huge. Um, so you're gonna get knowledge quicker this way, uh, but less of it. Um, though if the RNG favors you from the random events you get from having an extra scout or from scavenging, uh, you might actually end up getting more knowledge than with tribal society, but that's a gamble. That's a gamble that you're probably not going to actually get more knowledge than you would from tribal. But it's a possibility because the extra scout will allow you to get to tribal camps faster than other people get to them, assuming you're not on an island and the only person on it. Um, and the nomad band scavenging will maybe give you the knowledge benefits of those, um, and will give you some extra knowledge from settling if you make that choice. All right, so let's look at tribal now. Um, so, tribal has been until now the only government. It's the default one. It's the one that you have if you do not do a nomad start. Um, and it should be noted that uh, the basic buffs that you get um, from just the government, uh, for the two governments, they're almost all the same, except that tribal does get two more influence than the band society does get. And that is certainly helpful. That is certainly helpful. Um, it's not gonna make an amazing world of difference, but it is helpful. And you should make sure to note that you will be expanding the land area of your first city, and any additional cities that you found actually, faster with tribal than you would with band society. Um, so there is tribal farming, which gives you +1 food to your homeland. It's reasonably useful as a first ability. It's pretty. It's nice when you get it. Actually, at the stage of the game that you get it, that's nice. It allows you to, uh, say, work a forest instead of a grassland and still be getting 200% growth, um, but also be getting the production from the forest, which is more important than the growth at that stage of the game. um, early on. While growth is important, population only does anything if it's actually producing something other than pop needs. So if you're just growing your population, but all the population is only producing food, that population is completely worthless. Um, so you really want to have your population be giving you something of value rather than just producing stuff to make more population um, at all stages of the game. So this allows you to be doing both um, more effectively in the early game, which is really important. That said, the magnitude of this bonus falls off pretty quickly. Um, it's, it's great for the first 10 turns or so of the game. After that, it's gonna start falling off, and by the time you get to the end of tribalism, you're probably not really gonna notice this bonus anymore. Um, but it's totally reasonable as a first ability. It's good, and I wouldn't miss it. Um, I wouldn't miss taking it. Raise tribal army. It creates a war band in exchange for government XP. I think it costs 10 government XP to create the war band. Uh, this is this is bad. This is like actually bad. Like most of the time, this is probably going. Taking this would probably hurt you rather than help you. Um, there are rare cases where that is not the case. Um, but the trade of 10 government XP for a warband is usually not worth it, and you are spending 6 government XP to get this when you could be spending that government XP on one of these abilities that would help you so much more. So taking this uh will actively hinder you. I mean, if you take it once you've gotten all the other abilities, then I guess you're not wasting the government XP quite as much. I mean, you'll want the government XP for creating a settler um or to save up for doing stuff when you get better governments, but 6 government XP isn't gonna really break the bank either way. But you're not getting anything useful out of it because by the time you have all of these, uh, a one additional warband at especially at the cost of 10 government XP is just not gonna make an important difference. Um, in most situations, granted, there might occasionally be situations where that one warband will make a difference, but those are going to be really rare situations. So most of the time, taking raised tribal army is something you should avoid because taking that is just a waste of stuff on an ability that is a bad trade because the government XP that you would spend on creating the warband is more valuable to you than the warband, unless you have some huge surplus of government XP that would be incredibly rare to have at that stage of the game. Um, Oral history, +1 knowledge in your helmet. That's that's great. That's great. Um, you know, not as amazing by the time you're getting your next government, sure, because then you'll have more sources of knowledge, so it's proportionally less benefit, but it's still definitely useful. And when you get it, it is really, really useful. When you get it, it's like it is the most useful ability in this tree, no question. Um, and the abilities in this tree are not bad abilities, to be clear. So this is a really use. It's probably, aside from the Cradle of Civilization ability in the Band Society, it is the best ability that you can get in either of the governments, um, that are available in this age. Um, it's just really, really good. It increases your knowledge generation by 50% at this stage of the game. Um, you know, you may have gotten a council building by the time you get to oral history, so maybe it's only increasing your knowledge generation by 33% rather than 50%, but that's still a very significant improvement. Um, and knowledge is power, people. Knowledge is power. Um, especially at this stage of the game. Knowledge is really, really powerful. Um, So in a normal speed game, my rough calculation, very, very rough, is that this is likely to give you about 25 points or so of knowledge altogether. That's a really rough estimate based on how much time I usually spend before I am able to uh, spend in the first two ages, after getting this ability, before I am able to switch to another government. Um, so about it takes me about 20 turns once I am likely to have gotten this. It's gonna be about 20 more turns or so after that until I reach age 3 and am able to switch to one of the age 3 governments. And most all that time I will have local reforms up, so that ends up being 25 knowledge. It's not exact, it's a really, really rough estimate, but it gives you a general ballpark idea of what it is going to give you. And of course, you're getting it gradually over time, uh, not instantly, um, but uh, and like you might end up spending less time before you get to that point, or you might end up spending more time. But and of course, if you're doing not the standard speed game, that's gonna change dramatically. Um, but it's really useful for this stage of the game. Um, that's like uh, almost all of the text that you need to advance from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age. Um, all right, community projects. Community projects, it gives you +1 improvement points in your homeland. That's doubling the default improvement points you get. Yeah, that's good. That's definitely eventually by the time you are switching to once you get to higher level governments, by that time the percentage-wise improvement that you are getting out of that +1 improvement points is gonna drop noticeably. So like when you're going into your age 3 government, yeah, it won't be amazing then, but for basically the entire time that you spend in tribal government, um, that's gonna be, it starts as doubling your improvement points, and then you'll eventually be getting stuff that will give you improvement points through other ways, but it'll still be a noticeable improvement to your improvement point generation. Like it's not as good as oral history. It's not as good as getting reformed, but it's good, and you should be looking forward to when you are able to take it. So you're gonna um reformed, same as all the other reforms, +10 innovation to your innovation accumulation meter, um, and +2 culture in your homeland, which, yeah, at this early in the game, the culture bonus is really powerful, and of course the innovation is really welcome and will make things, getting innovation events uh, is going to make things much better for you in a variety of different ways depending upon the innovation event um, that you get. There's some randomness, but there's some predictability as to which one you will get based on choices that you make. So this will likely give you an innovation event early in age 2, and the first innovation event you get in age 2 is always related to the national spirit that you choose in age 2. I mean, assuming that you've chosen a new national spirit before the innovation event happens, which you should be choosing a national spirit the instant you enter the age. So that should be the case, but theoretically you could avoid choosing a national spirit and thus get an innovation event in age 2 before you've chosen one, so get a regular age 2 innovation event if you really wanted for some reason. So you will know what innovation event you are going to get, and it'll be based on the national spirit that you have chosen. So your uh, progress through this should basically look like tribal farming, oral history, reformed, then community projects, and just ignore that. That's like the way to go in this tree, and many of the things that you can do, what order you want to choose things are situational, but for the age 1 governments, it's really not situational what you want to choose. Um, Maybe banned society could be if you're being swarmed by barbarians. It might be better to choose the one that gives you additional defense against barbarians, but that's the one possible situational thing that would be affected by this. So overall, tribal, you'll want to go through that path, um, getting beeline oral history as quickly as you can. Uh, for both of these, the abilities that you can get in these trees are so worth it. So you want to basically unless the choice is between government XP and knowledge or culture, in which case it's a difficult choice. Um, you always want to be choosing government XP if you have the option at a goody hut or something like that. For these, because government XP is so important for getting really good abilities uh, in these governments at this stage of the game. So this is usually going to be your first government if in a non-nomad game you don't even have a choice. Um, and if you do have a choice, this has the this provides a predictable amount of benefit um in a very consistent way. And if you don't have an obvious second place to settle, then it is clearly more long-term benefit. Not as much short-term benefit, but more long-term benefit. Um, and if you can't scrounge up the government XP to get uh, the advanced society needs to advance quickly, um, then this is also going to give you a bit more long-term benefit. Um, it has very obvious path through it that makes it very easy and simple. But it was not. If you have a second place to settle, then this is not actually as good as Band Society. Um, Although you will know what you are getting from this more than you know what you're getting from Band Society. So um so I'd say that there is not entirely a clear winner between the two. They're both have a lot of good stuff. Um, but usually I would say Band Society is going to outperform Tribal on maps that are not small size or not tiny or small size. On a tiny or small size map, uh, Tribal might outperform Band Society because there's less good places to settle. Um, if you are on a large or huge map, Band Society is much more likely to be better because you're going to have more settlement options, and also the additional scout will help you more on a larger map because there's more places you can go get goody huts, and the additional scout will help you more on that. So Band Society is almost certainly what you want on a larger or huge map. Tribal is probably what you want on a tiny or small map. Um, but they're both going to have good points on all of those, and on a regular medium map, it might be more of a situational choice. Um, Band Society will probably often outperform Tribal by a bit, sometimes by a lot. Um, if you get lucky, or if you have a really good place to settle quickly. Um, but you know what you're getting with Tribal more, and that's definitely a strong benefit. So, neither are at all bad. Both have um a lot going for them, so it's just a bit of a you should, like most things in Millennia, look at your situation and know what the various options are going to get you, um, and then make a decision based on that. Millennia does take a lot of thought as to weighing what option is going to be best in any given situation. So that's my guide here. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like, feel free to comment, subscribe. All those things certainly help me out and encourage me to give you more uh, videos, and let me know that people are watching and finding this useful. Um, there hasn't been a lot of videos about Millennia recently that I've seen, and I really enjoyed the game, so I decided I would try making some. So hopefully this helps people. Um, and let me know what sort of guides you'd like to see in the future in the comments down below, and I will come back with more. Until then, take care.